I want to help resuscitate her. Now, damn it! I'll stand back. Just go in. If she's alive, I'll...
Hang on.
Go. Get in! Damn!
17, am I good to make entry on the front door? The back door is where we're going to have evidence.
Damn, what are y'all doing?
Just hold what you got.
They won't let me.
Who won't let you?
Supervisor will not let me in.
Who's the supervisor?
My supervisor.
Call Tim Chapman.
They're
Call
all,
Tim Chapman.
Supervisor will be here in just a second, sir. Sir, I'm sorry.
And this midday, a Dublin man accused of killing his wife just months after they married is scheduled to go on trial Monday. Back in June of 2021, Dublin police found Tiffany Whitaker shot to death in the kitchen of their Penn Avenue home. Her husband, Ben Whitaker, was missing but turned up that night in the woods of Wilkinson County. Police say that he shot her after the couple argued. And now jury selection in his murder trial is scheduled to get underway Monday in Lawrence County Superior Court. Meanwhile, friends and family are holding a vigil in Tiffany Whitaker's memory. It's scheduled for 7 o'clock tonight at Sandy Grove Baptist Church in Milan in Dodge County.
I know you're doing it.
I
know you're doing it.
Brother, I'm sorry. I really am. Ask her what time this gunshot allegedly took place. When is this?
We don't know. They don't know. They just didn't show up for work.
Nobody showed up for work that morning. Not Tiffany, not her husband. Her coworkers called it a welfare check. The officers called it a locked door with a bullet hole in the window. And when they looked through that glass, Tiffany was already on the kitchen floor.
If you look in the back door, you'll see what looks like a gunshot going through a window. You look on the floor and she's laying there. There's blood everywhere.
Is there?
There's looks like a bullet hole going through the back glass.
All right, let's see the supervisor.
No, sir.
Where's the supervisor?
They're on the way.
Can't they give permission for you to go in and if she's alive, we resuscitate her? Can't you do that? I mean, damn.
Well, that's what I asked for, if I can go in through the front.
Tell
And they told me to.
The physician's here, and let me resuscitate her if she's alive.
It was just after 8:30 in the morning. June 30th, 2021. Dublin, Georgia. Officers pulled up to a house on Penn Avenue for what dispatch told them was a routine welfare check. A woman hadn't come in for her shift, couldn't be reached. Her husband was unreachable too. His truck wasn't in the driveway. They tried the front door, locked. They walked around to the back. And that's when they saw it. A bullet hole punched clean through the window pane of the back door. They looked through the glass. On the kitchen floor was the body of a 25-year-old woman, covered in blood. Her doctor was standing right there behind the police tape. He had driven over himself when he heard she hadn't come in. He looked at one of the officers and said, "If she's alive, I'll stand back. Just go in." They couldn't let him through. Evidence preservation protocol, so he stood there on the other side of that tape. And she lay there on the other side of that glass. And the man who had done this, her husband of 59 days, was already long gone. Anyways, let me take you back to the beginning. Because this story did not start on that kitchen floor. It started long before that. And you need to know who Tiffany Jade Scarborough was before we talk about how she died. Tiffany grew up in Milan, Georgia. Small town. The kind of place where everybody knows your name, your parents' names, and probably your grandparents' names too. She was a dancer in high school. She graduated with honors from Dodge County High School in the class of 2014. Not just passing, excelling. And when she left that small town for college, she did not slow down for a single second. She earned her bachelor's degree in nursing, magna cum laude, from Middle Georgia State University. Magna cum laude. That means she graduated with high distinction. She worked for every bit of it. After college, she went straight to work at Dublin OB/GYN Associates as a labor and delivery nurse. Every single day, she walked into that job and helped women through one of the hardest, most important moments of their lives. Her colleagues adored her, and she wasn't done yet. She was actively working toward becoming a certified nurse midwife. But here's the thing. The people who loved Tiffany, when they talked about her, they did not lead with the degree or the career or the ambition. Moving on, what they talked about was Eli, her son. 4 years old at the time of her death. Tiffany was completely devoted to that little boy, being the best mother she could possibly be. That was the job she cared about most, above everything else. She took care of herself too. She was an avid swimmer. Scuba certified through Patty. She was intentional about her health, her diet, her lifestyle. And she was honest. That is the word that comes up over and over again from the people who knew her. Honest. Her mother, Julie Scarborough, said it plainly at sentencing. She was honest. Even if it wasn't what you necessarily wanted to hear, she told it like it was. She was true to herself. That honesty was one of the things people loved most about her. It was also, in the end, what got her killed. Her best friend Brooke Moore said after the verdict, "She was a once-in-a-lifetime friend to me, and I will never have another one like her." Keep that in mind. Keep it close, because we are about to get to the night of June 29th, and you are going to need to remember who Tiffany was when we get there. By the spring of 2021, Tiffany's life looked, from the outside, like it was all coming together. She had met a man named Benjamin Lee Whitaker, Ben, about a year before. He was 37 years old, a registered nurse working in the ICU at Fairview Park Hospital right there in Dublin. He was the son of a well-known local doctor. He had lived in his house on Penn Avenue for over a decade. Neighbors knew him as quiet, respectable, smart by all accounts. On May 1st, 2021, Tiffany and Ben got married. After the wedding, Tiffany and little Eli moved into the Penn Avenue house with him. The neighbors noticed them the way you notice any new family settling into a street you've lived on for years. Nothing unusual, nothing that raised any flags. "They seemed like a nice family," said one neighbor. "Never had any problems with them." 2 nurses, a new marriage, a little boy, a home. That was what Penn Avenue saw on the surface. But there was a lot that Penn Avenue did not know. What the neighbors didn't see was that Ben Whitaker had been struggling for a while before Tiffany and Eli ever moved in. The COVID-19 pandemic had done something to him. As an ICU nurse, he had spent those years watching patients die in significant numbers. That kind of loss does not just leave when the shift ends. Ben became depressed. He was prescribed an antidepressant called Lexapro. And he had started drinking, not casually. He was drinking in a way that Tiffany noticed, and because she was honest, she said something about it, more than once. Ben would later tell police that Tiffany had been calling him out about his drinking, that it had become a back-and-forth pattern between them. Now, here's where things get specific, and I need you to pay attention to this part. The day before Tiffany was killed, Ben went to an urgent care facility. At that appointment, the nurse practitioner doubled his Lexapro prescription and added a second medication called Buspar. Ben was a nurse. He knew exactly what both of those drugs were. The warning label on Lexapro says clearly, "Do not combine with Buspar. That combination is flagged as dangerous." That was the day before his wife ended up dead on the kitchen floor. Through all of it, the depression, the drinking, the medication, Tiffany kept showing up. For Eli, for her patients, for herself. Tiffany's mother, Julie, would later testify that she had always had a bad feeling about Ben. She called him a narcissist, but he was Tiffany's husband. There was no documented history of violence between them. No police calls, no restraining orders, just a mother's gut feeling, and a marriage that was 59 days old. The evening of June 29th, 2021, Julie Scarborough came to the Penn Avenue house and picked up 4-year-old Eli. The little boy left with his grandmother. He was not in that house for what happened next. Ben and Tiffany had pizza together at the coffee table that night. And then, at some point, Tiffany said something about his drinking. She did what she always did. She told the truth. Ben would later describe it to police himself. She was still chastising me about having a couple of drinks. I just guess that constant nagging feeling set me off. He got up from that coffee table. He walked to the bedroom. He opened the nightstand. He took out his 9mm handgun. And he walked back into the kitchen. Tiffany was standing there. He shot her 5 times. She fell to the floor.
What did you and Tiffany do?
She was still chastising me about having a couple of drinks. I guess just that constant nagging feeling set me off.
Just nagging at you, and it set you off. When you say set you off, does that mean agitate, aggravate? What did you do when it set you off?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Oh. I went in my bedroom and I got my pistol out of the nightstand.
Mm-hmm. After you took it out of your nightstand, what did you do?
I walked into the kitchen and I shot her.
You walked into the kitchen and you shot her. How many times did you shoot her?
I think 3 total, but I don't remember.
Let me just sit here for a second, because I need you to absorb what just happened. This woman, this nurse, this mother, this magna cum laude graduate was standing in her own kitchen. And the man she had married less than 2 months before walked back in there with a gun. Because she told him the truth about his drinking. Oh, so now honesty is a reason to pick up a weapon. Make it make sense. After the shooting, Ben did not call anyone. He did not call 911. He did not call family. He packed 2 black suitcases. He put the murder weapon inside one of them. He added some knives. He placed his .40 caliber handgun on the passenger seat of his truck. He put an AR-15 in the toolbox in the truck bed. He locked the back door on his way out. And he drove away. He left Tiffany Jade Scarborough on that kitchen floor and drove straight to his father's hunting property in Wilkinson County. He hid in the woods near a creek. He turned his phone off. And he waited. The next morning, Tiffany did not show up for her shift at Dublin OB/GYN Associates. Ben did not show up at Fairview Park Hospital either. Neither of them could be reached. Tiffany's coworkers knew immediately that something was wrong. She never missed work without a word. Not once. So they went to Penn Avenue. Her doctor came too. Ben's truck was not in the driveway. That was the first sign. Then someone noticed the back door. A bullet hole through the window pane. They called the police. Officers arrived. Front door, locked. Back door, locked. But through that glass, they could see her. Tiffany was on the kitchen floor, covered in blood. Dublin's police chief, Tim Chapman, was there himself. He later said, "I was right there. I went in with the officers to clear the residence. When we understood what we had, we locked it down." Outside, behind the police tape, Tiffany's doctor and coworkers stood and waited. At one point, her doctor looked at an officer and said, "If she's alive, I'll stand back. Just go in." The officers were not yet authorized to enter. By the time they made entry, there was nothing left to resuscitate. The neighborhood filled up fast. One neighbor described it as what looked like 400 cop cars and caution tape stretching down the street. People had to reroute just to get home from work. Ben Whitaker was nowhere to be seen. Police named him as a person of interest immediately. Chief Chapman told the press, It shocked the conscience of our community. Within hours, investigators had a lead. Ben's truck had been picked up by GPS. It was sitting in a field in Wilkinson County on land that belonged to Ben's father, a hunting property the family used regularly. If the truck was there, Ben was probably nearby. They searched, and about 3 hours after locating the truck, they found him, Benjamin Lee Whitaker, hiding in the woods near a creek. Soaking wet, he was arrested without a single problem. No resistance, no fight. He just let them take him. No problems at all, Chief Chapman said. Detectives sat down with Ben in the interrogation room. They read him his Miranda rights. He waived them. He agreed to talk. And within minutes, he told them almost everything. He said he and Tiffany had been arguing. He said she had been getting on him about his drinking. He said he went to the bedroom, got the gun, and came back. And then he said it plainly. I went in the kitchen and I let out my shot. He thought he had fired 3 times. Police found 7 shell casings at the scene. Prosecutors later confirmed Tiffany was struck 5 times. Ben also told detectives exactly where the murder weapon was, inside one of the black suitcases in the truck. He listed every weapon he had brought with him: the 9mm, the .40 caliber on the passenger seat, the AR-15 in the toolbox. One of the detectives, after over 30 years on the job, told Ben he could count on one hand the number of people who had been as straightforward as he was being in that room. And Ben just sat there, calm, flat, not crying, not visibly remorseful, just sitting there. But then came a detail that would matter later. Ben had told detectives he arrived at his father's land Monday morning. GPS data put him there Monday night, right around 9:40 p.m., which lined up with right after the shooting. When the detective pointed that out, Ben adjusted his story on the spot. Just like that, like he chose a specific destination. He drove there deliberately. He stayed hidden for hours. That is not the behavior of someone who had no idea what he was doing. By the end of that interrogation, investigators had a recorded confession on camera, a murder weapon, physical evidence, and a GPS trail that contradicted Ben's own account of his movements. What they did not have, as it turned out, was a guaranteed conviction. But we will get to that in the next part. Benjamin Lee Whitaker was formally charged with murder on July 1st, 2021, the day after Tiffany's body was found. Fairview Park Hospital confirmed that same day that he was no longer employed there. Gone from the job. Gone from the house. Gone from the life he and Tiffany had barely started building together. A few months later, Ben appeared before a judge in Lawrence County Superior Court for his arraignment. The prosecution had a recorded confession. They had a murder weapon. They had GPS data. They had shell casings. They had a man who sat in an interrogation room and described in his own voice, on camera, going to get the gun and walking back into the kitchen. And that man stood before the judge and entered a plea of not guilty. Let me tell you something. The Scarborough family sat with that. They carried it. They had heard the confession themselves. They knew what was on that tape. And now they had to wait, not just for a trial, but for justice, while the man who killed their daughter, their sister, their friend, stood in a courtroom and said those 2 words, not guilty. Anyways, the charges were malice murder, felony murder, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. And then the waiting began. The first trial did not begin until August 27th, 2025, 4 years after Tiffany Scarborough was killed. 4 years of grief. 4 years of court dates, and continuances, and a family holding themselves together while the calendar just kept moving forward without her. The trial was held in Lawrence County Superior Court in Dublin before Judge John Helton. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Harold McClendon, with Chief Assistant District Attorney Kelly Weathers also arguing for the state. Defense attorneys Mitchell Warrow and Amanda Clark Palmer represented Whitaker. Tiffany's mother, Julie Scarborough, was one of the first witnesses called to the stand. She was asked whether her daughter's death at the hands of her own husband was something she could have ever imagined. She said it was unimaginable evil. She told the jury what it felt like to arrive at that house and be told her daughter was gone. "I lost it. It truly was the most tragic day of my life." She also told them she had never had a good feeling about Ben from the beginning. She called him a narcissist. She had felt it from the very first time she met him. The prosecution played the recorded interrogation for the entire courtroom. Every person in that room heard Ben Whitaker's voice, calm, measured, almost flat, saying, "I just guess that constant nagging feeling set me off." Now, the defense did not stand up and deny that Ben pulled the trigger. They couldn't. The confession was sitting right there. Instead, they argued that Ben was not in control of himself when it happened. Defense attorney Mitchell Warrow told the jury, "It was like a bad dream. It was like an old-time slide projector with gaps in the footage. That is how Ben Whitaker felt after he shot his wife." Their argument was that Ben had developed something called serotonin syndrome, a condition that can be triggered when certain medications interact dangerously with each other. They said the Lexapro and the Buspar that were prescribed the day before the murder, combined with the alcohol he had been drinking that night, caused his brain to essentially malfunction. That he was not capable of knowing right from wrong in that moment. There's a risk of developing serotonin syndrome simply by taking Lexapro by itself, Warrow told the jury. But they warn, especially when you are mixing it with other SSRIs. The prosecution pushed back, hard. If Ben's brain had malfunctioned so completely that he had no control over his actions, then how did he fire 5 shots with enough accuracy to strike Tiffany every single time? How did he then calmly pack 2 suitcases? How did he think to put the murder weapon inside one of them? How did he lock the back door on his way out? How did he drive not just anywhere, but to a specific property in a neighboring county? How did he stay hidden in those woods for hours without calling anyone or raising any alarm? And here's the part that the prosecution kept coming back to. Ben Whitaker was not some random person who had never heard of these medications. He was an ICU nurse. He knew what Lexapro was. He knew what Buspar was. He knew what the warning label said. He knew what alcohol does when you mix it with those drugs. He made those choices anyway. So what? The jury deliberated for nearly 2 full days, and then they came back, 11-1, deadlocked. Judge Helton declared a mistrial. 11 jurors looked at a recorded confession, a man describing in his own words exactly what he did and exactly why, and voted to convict. 1 person held out, 1 single vote. And because of that 1 vote, Benjamin Lee Whitaker walked out of that courtroom without a conviction. The Scarborough family had already been waiting 1,726 days, and now they had to start all over again. Like, I need you to sit with that for a second. 1 person, 1 juror, looking at a video confession, and still said no. Make it make sense. The second trial was moved out of Lawrence County entirely. Attorneys could not find an impartial jury there. The case was too well known in that community. So the retrial was held in Morgan County Superior Court in Madison, Georgia. It began in March of 2026. Same defense team, same argument. Involuntary intoxication, serotonin syndrome. Ben had no control. Ben didn't know what he was doing. But this time, the prosecution came back with something different. They brought in the medical director of the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. She had conducted a full court-ordered criminal responsibility evaluation of Whitaker, her. Review covered his cell phone data, the firearms evidence, the crime scene analysis, and witness testimony about his behavior, both before and after the shooting. Her conclusion did not support the defense's theory. Not even close. The jury began deliberating on Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. They came back in 3 hours. Guilty. Malice murder. Felony murder. 2 counts of aggravated assault. Guilty on every single count. Julie Scarborough described what that moment felt like. It was like you were blown up into a huge balloon, waiting for it to bust. And then, when we got that guilty verdict in Morgan County, it was like somebody had popped it with a needle, and slowly the air went out. 1,765 days after Tiffany Jade Scarborough was killed in her own kitchen. After 2 trials, after one person sat in a jury room, looked at a recorded confession, and still said it was not enough. After all of that, finally, guilty. Sentencing was held on April 29, 2026, back in Lawrence County Superior Court. The Scarborough family walked into that courtroom wearing red. Every single one of them. Because red was Tiffany's favorite color. Family members, longtime friends, people whose lives she had touched in ways big and small. One by one, they stood up and spoke about what had been taken from them. Julie Scarborough spoke first. Her voice was steady. Time for us is marked by the time before and the time after Tiffany's murder. The people we were before that day are forever gone. Then she turned and looked directly at Ben Whitaker. You really thought you could get away with murder. You thought you were smarter than all the justice system, all the jurors. Tiffany's father, Dean Scarborough, said, maybe now he can get a little bit of what he gave her. Her sister Lynn said through tears, as much as I cherish all those memories, the fact that she will never be here to make a new memory, it was unbearable. Brooke Moore, Tiffany's best friend, told the court she feels a Tiffany-shaped hole in her life every single day. I find myself at dinners, weddings, parties, I'm looking around. She was a once-in-a-lifetime friend to me, and I will never have another one like her. And then there was Eli, 9 years old now. He sat directly behind the man who murdered his mother. And when it was his turn to speak, he looked out at that courtroom and said, I'm excited that he will not be able to hurt me, my family, or anyone else ever again. 9 years old. And he already understood exactly what this day meant. Before delivering the sentence, Judge John Helton addressed the courtroom. Everyone here from both sides and both families are only going to experience loss in this situation. And then he read the sentence, count 1. Malice murder. Life without the possibility of parole. Benjamin Lee Whitaker will spend every remaining day of his life in a Georgia state prison. He will never walk out. He will never be able to reach Eli or his family or anyone else ever again. Tiffany Jade Scarborough was 25 years old. She graduated magna cum laude. She spent her career helping women through labor and delivery. She was working toward becoming a midwife. She was raising her son with everything she had. She was honest. She was strong. She told the truth even when people didn't want to hear it. And on the night of June 29th, 2021, the man she had married 59 days earlier decided that the truth was something he could not tolerate. So he got up from that coffee table, walked to the bedroom, and came back with a gun. Moving on, because Tiffany's family refused to let her story end on that kitchen floor. In the years since her death, they have been building something in her name. It is called the Tiffany Jade Foundation, an outreach ministry focused on toxic relationship awareness, women's health, and self-worth. Work that Tiffany herself would have done. Work that carries her forward. Eli is 9 years old now. His family has made him a promise. He will always know who his mother was. He will grow up carrying her with him. Julie Scarborough said it at sentencing. Tiffany's true legacy will live on in Eli. He will always know who his mama was and what he meant to her. Before you go, I want to leave you with one thought. This case had a recorded confession. The man said in his own words, on camera, exactly what he did and exactly why he did it. And the first jury still could not agree. 11-1. Ben Whitaker had a clear reason and a history of drinking. He also had a documented medication change the day before the murder, one that his own defense said left him unable to tell right from wrong. Does that matter? Should it change anything? Or does the outcome stay the same regardless of what was in his system that night? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for watching This Day Crime. Like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.